The festive season is here and I can feel the excitement already. It is indeed a beautiful Friday evening. Trust you had a great week thus far. I'm very thrilled to welcome you to another insightful and engaging episode of our program. The program series is Inflation Dynamics and Economic Development on Amalgate Radio Communications. I am Titilola Ogunshono. I'm very excited because we have an expert with us today who had graced our program some weeks ago where he shared valuable insights. We started our discussion on inflationary trend with focus on Nigeria. We have the privilege of having him today again to go further with our discussion. Thank you so much, Dr. Kehinde Atoyebi, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atoyebi, again for honoring us with your presence. The National Bureau of Statistics, the NBS, revealed that inflation rate in Nigeria has risen for the 18th consecutive time since January 2023. In fact, data shown by the NBS as at July 15, 2024, revealed that headline inflation in Nigeria rose to about 34.19% in June 2024 from what it was at the figure of 33.95% in May, and what we had as of June 2023 was 22.79%. And this inflationary pressure is one that's cut across various classes. The effect can be felt by almost everyone in Nigeria, from individuals to corporations to institutions to foreign investors and even government agencies. And I remember the last time when Dr. Atoyebi was here, he spoke about one of the causes of this inflationary pressure, which he mentioned that the removal of fuel subsidy, took its toll on inflation rate in Nigeria. So, Dr. Atoyebi, I'm asking my first question for today. What other factors do you think account for the present inflationary trend in Nigeria?
Thank you so much, Dr. Titilola Abari, for that inspiration or opportunity given to me to still highlight some of the issues surrounding inflationary trend in Nigeria. We have some other factors like monetary factors. We have demand pool inflation. We have the cost pool inflations. We have the internal and external factors. We have structural variables. We have supply side shocks, and if you take them or itemize them one after the other, you look at monetary variables. For instance,
we
are talking about price level and money supply. And right now, you know that inflation itself is according to Milton Friedman, is everywhere phenomenon. It means that there is no country in the world that doesn't experience inflation. But monetary variable may be as a result or probably one of the causes of inflationary trend in Nigeria. And when I'm talking about monetary variable, I'm talking about the quantity theory of money, which has started at a direct and proportional relation between general price level or the average price level and the money supply. An increase in money supply is bound to increase the general price level of the economy. And if you look at it, you see that the only authority that has the right to increase money supply is Central Bank of Nigeria,
the CBN.
So the central bank decide to increase money supply, definitely there will be more money in circulation, and therefore that will translate to the general price level. And there will be intermittent and consistent rise in the price level of every variables, and that will lead to general equilibrium issues. Unlike Nigeria, that depends solely on oil. That is, I'm talking about the monocultural nature of the economy. You find out that anything associated with oil, when there's an increase in the price of fuel, importation of fuel is going to increase the general price level, because it will be at the disadvantage of an importing country like Nigeria, because Nigeria solely depend on refined petroleum fuel because of incapacitated of our refineries. So that is a monetary phenomenon. So that is one side.
Okay.
We could also have demand pull inflation.
Okay.
That is when you have demand greater than supply. And you find that Nigeria is not even a supply side economy. Nigeria does not produce.
Okay.
Consume. So we are a consuming nations.
Really?
And a consuming nations is bound to experience inflation. And I told you the other time, when we are looking about inflation, Nigeria is actually not even experiencing inflation alone. It's the combinations of other factors like unemployment. Because when you mix these two variables together, the two variables are expected to be at variance. But unfortunately, they are moving in pari passu, that is alongside with each other, which actually negates Philip trend.
Yes.
Philip Kopp. It has been empirically established that there is inverse relationship between unemployment and inflation. But the actual empirical evidence broke down in the case of Nigeria and other developing nations. Why? Because we find out that we have peculiarities. You understand? So that's demand pull inflation. When you have demand greater than supply, definitely there is going to be an increase in price. You also have cost pull inflation.
Sorry, Dr. I don't have to cut you in. I remember that was when you mentioned that the peculiarity of Nigerian situation, but the situation of stagflation, by unemployment rate coupled with high inflationary pressure in the economy, and you're also having slow economic growth. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay, please go ahead, Dr.
So we have cost push inflation.
Okay.
We are talking about probably the cost of raw materials.
Okay.
And you know that since Nigerians is not even a producing nation.
Oh, we are not producing at all? Is that what you are saying, empirical?
We depend solely on oil. And we are always talking about diversification of the economy.
True.
That means shifting from oil sector to other sector.
Okay.
But there is imbalance, because the theory of big push or the balance balance theory, that's the big push theory, does not hold in Nigeria, because we find out that there's a problem of what we call Dutch disease.
Okay. We want to shed more light for our viewers if they don't know what Dutch disease is.
Dutch disease.
Okay.
I'm talking of, we have the advent of oil in 1958 in commercial quantity actually leads to moving or shifting away from agricultural predominant occupation of Nigeria to the oil sector.
Okay.
So you will now find that Nigerian really doesn't even like to even go on farming again, rather than relying on that oil. And with that, it leads to what we call rent-seeking behavior of our political leaders, because we find out that they are now moving how they to look for political positions and to amass wealth for themselves at the expense of the masses. And here you have people moving or having like 753 duplex, working with 900 billion, and however, these are people that are not being punished, or there is no punitive measure to contain this capital flight. And these are some of the problems that coupled together to really lead to increase in inflation in Nigeria. So, cost of production. You have the cost of production. When there is increase in cost of production, that's bound to increase price. The general price will actually increase, because the producer has to adjust their production's cost to include those some of the marginal or private costs. So, and therefore it's going to affect all other or it's going to affect the product price. And when it affects the product price, the consumer also bear the body.
True.
And therefore there will be increase in price, which is inflationary word. Trend.
Yes.
We also have a supply shock.
Okay.
Like food and energy price. When we say supply, I just actually mentioned the other time, food, you find out that you look at the history of Nigeria, you find out that predominantly we are agrarians.
And
true. It's quite unfortunate. If you go back to the history lane, in 1951, you find out that the Nigeria itself is divided into 3 regions. You have the northern region, the southern region, and the western region. That time, the oil has not even been discovered in commercial quantity. But however, the progressive natures of our leader then were able to use what is available over there to transform the economy.
True.
And the history has it, the Awolowo time, being the premier of the western region, was able to use cocoa production to develop the West by introducing free education for all from primary to university, and we call it cocoa pyramid. And the same situation, somewhat like situation was also happening in the northern area, where they experienced groundnut pyramid, and they were able to use that to do a lot of things.
Yes, develop the region.
And all that, the region.
Yes.
The same thing happened in the southern, what we call palm oil pyramid. Because it is the palm oil they were able to use in those days to develop their own.
That utilizing what they have, optimizing the resources.
The advent of that oil makes people to become indolent, lazy, not having the motivation to go back to the farm again. Therefore, relying on this particular oil as a major source of foreign exchange. And today, you find that the aftermath of those reliance is really affecting and is culminating in the economy in terms of inflationary trend. And that's why I'm talking about the food and energy price. And the energy price I'm talking about the source of petroleum, like gasoline, like motor spirit, as PMS. You can see that because of the monocultural nature of the economy, any increase in or hike in the energy price of food is going to lead to inflation, whether food inflation or energy inflation. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you can see variations.
So there are two sides to it: food, energy.
Yes. And we also have institutional problems.
Okay.
When I'm talking about institutional, our institution is weak. To the extent that we have some our political leaders are corrupt, and they hide things, they amass wealth for themselves at the expense of the masses. All this is actually leading to inflationary issues in Nigeria. We also have an increase in wages also. Can also be part of what is actually causing inflationary trend in Nigeria, because in the activities of unions, the union may decide to bargain for increase in wages or the review of minimum wages, because in line with Keynes theory that rigid is the wages of workers is flexible. That's rigid downward. That means an increase in wages is likely to lead to increase in cost of production and lead to increase in the general price. We also have an increase in raw materials. If there's an increase in raw material, that's the price of raw material, the inputs. We have the basic solo growth model, which consists of capital and labor. Any increase in this input, in the price of this input, will actually lead to increase in the product, and that's actually cause inflationary trend
in Nigeria.
I
told you, listeners, that it's going to be another exciting, intriguing, expository, and engaging session with our economic expert, Dr. Kehinde Atoyebi. If you're just joining us, we have Dr. Kehinde Atoyebi here with us again. He has mentioned some of the factors that are accountable for the present inflationary trend in Nigeria. He mentioned monetary factors. He mentioned cost push factors, inflation, that is when there's a spike, there's an increase in the factors of production. He mentioned structural variables. He mentioned the supply side, factors, or what we call shocks. He mentioned institutional factors, which speaks to the level of corruption in the system. He also mentioned another concept about the Dutch disease, which I asked him to break down, which he explained further that since the discovery of oil in Nigeria, discovery of oil should actually be a blessing to the country, but the reverse has been the case. That's what we're talking about, Dutch disease. Okay, and he mentioned so many of these factors. But Dr. Atoyebi, I'm going to go back to you now. I want to find out from you mentioned all of these factors, but which of these factors would you consider as the main triggers of the present inflationary trend that we have in the country?
Thank you, Dr. Mrs. Titilayo.
Okay.
The structural variable I mentioned comprises of supply shocks,
okay,
like food and energy price variations, institutional problems, increase in wages, increase in price of raw materials, decline in productivities, and increase in money supply. So when I'm talking about structural variables, majorly you can see the supply shock.
Okay.
Since Nigeria is a consuming nation,
you are still mentioning that again.
That definitely, there is no way we can match. There is no way Nigeria can have favorable terms of trade with other partners in the world, because Nigeria economy is an open economy that trade with other parts of the world, but because we are not a producing economy, definitely there's going to be supply gap. And when there's a supply gap, exactly when I talk about the food and energy price, when there's shortage of food, definitely you can see that there will be increase in the general price, and this will continue. And some of these things that can actually cause decrease or decline in food productivity is land cultivations, the activities of the bandits, that's the bandit activities
in Nigeria,
okay, and the nonchalant attitude of our citizens to go back to the farm, and the over reliance on the oil sector without shifting away from oil to other sectors of the economy.
Okay.
Then and the likely the former fuel subsidy removal that was introduced by the current president is also part of the problem. And we also have institutional problems such as corruption, the regulatory quality, and the government effectiveness. That means the government is not effective, so and that's part of institutional problems. Then transparency and accountability, they are still lacking, and that's why you can see a lot of things are happening within the economy that Nigeria is unable, or the policymakers are unable to solve. And we also have, as I said the other time, increase in wages, the price of raw materials, decline in productivity, but majorly the one that trigger the real price level is food and energy price.
Okay.
Because food is number one. Are you agree?
Yes. From what Dr. Atoyebi has said, dear listeners, you can agree that the issue of inflationary trend in Nigeria is multifaceted, that many factors attributable to the present high inflationary rate that we have. Dr. Atoyebi has mentioned structural variables speaking to the supply side shock, and he said there are two major factors: the food prices and energy prices. And also he mentioned institutional factors, which speaks to level of corruption, regulatory quality, effectiveness of government policies. It speaks to issues like accountability, transparency. And again, he mentioned something very germane, that Nigeria is a minute nation than a productive nation. And since we trade with other parts, other countries in the world, it's not going to put us in a favorable terms of trade position. That is, if we continue to import than we export. So there are a lot of factors responsible for the present inflationary trend. Thank you so much, Dr. Atoyebi, for shedding so much light on these issues. So this will take me to my next question for you, Dr. Atoyebi. There are effective measures that you would recommend that government put in place to reduce the high inflationary trend, Dr. Atoyebi?
Dr. Mrs. Abari, for that beautiful questions. Yeah, personal experience and empirical evidence shows that demand management policy and supply management policy will be the best option to control inflation. And when we are talking about demand management policy, we are talking about monetary policy. And in the monetary policy, we also have a physical policy. But in the type of demand management, which is a monetary policy, the central bank can decide to mop up excess liquidity in the system so as to control inflationary trend, so that money will be scarce in the economy, and money, the little money that is available, a little money will be in the hand of individuals, and therefore there will be a deflation in the economy. Another issue under the demand management policy is for government to use some instruments. I'm talking about the Central Bank of Nigeria, instruments like open market operations, CBN cash reserve requirements, moral suasions, deposit ratio, and treasury increase in treasury rates, that's treasury rate, increasing in lending rate. Some of these demand management policy can be used to reduce the level or the trend of inflation in Nigeria. Then under the supply side economics or the supply management policy, the government must, as a matter of urgency, increase productions of food at micro and macro level, and also reduces the activities of bandits, so that farmers can go to their farms, they can produce more output that will meet the teeming populations of Nigeria. So with that, the food prices will actually go down. Even on the issue of energy price, the government can try as much as possible to reconsider its stance on fuel subsidy removal, because there is no country in the world that doesn't allow subsidy to stand. Even Russia, the Germany, Chile, and others, they still subsidize their products so that the cost of production will fall. So those are the things that government can do. And apart from that, changing bank reserve or raising interest rate, the government can also decide through central bank or through commercial bank to raise interest rate so that lending will reduce, and increase taxes as well. When you increase taxes, you can see the purchasing power will be reduced. People will not have more money to spend. And another issue is providing social infrastructure that will encourage the private sector to invest and expand output, taking advantage of existing of unemployed resources. Then the government can also target inflation, maybe 1 digit, and also wage control. Government will decide to leave wage by not increasing wage for a certain period of time, and as well the exchange rate policy should not actually be flexible. Unlike we have floating exchange rate here, and you see our naira is floating freely. If government peg the exchange rate a particular amount, there will actually reduce inflationary trend in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atoyibo, for that robust analysis. He has mentioned that the different interventions that government can come up with, the demand management policy, that's the monetary policy, the fiscal policy. He also mentioned the supply side management policy, okay? And he also mentioned something that I also find interesting. He mentioned the issue of raising, interest rates, raising taxes, and also provision of social infrastructure. But I want to stand on the other side of the divide. Okay, now I'm sure that some of our listeners will be saying, what is he saying? Okay, so if you're going to raise taxes, it means that definitely personal income tax will be increased, and that will affect the level of disposable income of our citizens. Now already we have citizens who cannot even afford some basic necessities. So if their disposable income, when I say disposable income, I mean the income you earn after taxes have been deducted. So it means that it's not going to allow them afford some basic necessities. Yes, I understand the fact that you're saying that will reduce purchasing power, reduce the amount of money in circulation, but that is also going to affect, it's not going to affect the welfare of the people. Now, you talked about increasing interest rate. I know the interest rate was increased recently again. That will be an incentive for firms to borrow, and when firms are going to borrow again, we are still talking about the inability to expand in terms of investment opportunities. So Dr. Atoyibo, so how do we marry this? How do we explain this to the citizen? What's your take on this?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. What I'm trying to say is that if we increase taxes, if government increase taxes, then really the purchasing power will actually reduce.
Okay.
And when purchasing power reduces, it's bound to have effects on the general price level.
Okay.
The essence is that means the government is going to raise government expenditure on social infrastructure,
okay,
such as roads, bridges, dam, hospitals, and administrative. We find that those things will actually encourage or take advantages of investor. The investor will take advantage of expanding output.
Okay.
That will actually bring down the price.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Atoyibo. So, listeners, you can see when government increase the interest rate, when government is proposed to increase, the taxes, maybe your personal income tax, and the case may be. Okay, now what Dr. Atoyibo is saying that it's the job of the government, okay, to provide the right enabling environment for businesses to thrive. Is that not it? And the way they can do that is through social infrastructure, the roads, IT infrastructure, transportation, infrastructure, even the power supply, the power infrastructure. So it's a job. So that way, it's going to reduce overall cost of production, and it's going to act as an incentive or even foreign direct investment into the country. Am I right, Dr. Atoyibo?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You know that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I told you that with Dr. Atoyibo, it is always a lot of valuable insights. I wish we could go on and on, but we have to wrap up this episode on this note. Thank you so much again, Dr. Kehinde Atoyibo, for coming.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I hope that when we call you on subsequent program series, you'll be there to, honor us with your presence and share valuable insight as always.
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Atoyibo. Well, that is all we can take. I hope that you've learned one or two things from our episode today. If you have questions, feedback, you want to share some insight, or are there topics you want us to look into, or do you have issues that you want us to treat, just send a mail to us at contact@thearmorgate.org. And at Armorgate, we have it covered for your consulting needs, for your training needs, communication needs, your IT needs, finance, audit, tax, needs. Then we have you covered. And the website to check is www.thearmorgate.org. G. And remember that we have other programs that run Monday to Fridays, still 5 p.m. WAT. My program runs every Friday, just like today, 5 p.m. WAT. As usual, I will leave you with the words of Alok Sharma, okay, which says infrastructure is the backbone of economic growth. It improves access to basic services such as clean water and electricity. It creates jobs and boosts businesses. Thank you so much. It is good to have you here with me. You are the reason why we do this at Armor Gate. Well, I remain Titular Augustono, saying bye from here and do have a fun-filled weekend.